Legends of Tomorrow Season 3, Episode 8, Crisis on Earth X, Part 4. Of course, this is the finale to the 4-part 2-night crossover. Obviously, I just gotta start with the most important thing of this episode, and that is, unfortunately, the fact that Stein actually dies in this episode. Very freaking sad, and it was just like, like I mentioned in my last review for Part 3, I was hoping it was like some sort of he's in shock sort of deal, something minor where it's not really official. I thought that it was Firestorm in the promo, but it was actually just the Ray that was flying around. I thought that was Firestorm, and I thought maybe they figured something out. Maybe, Jax actually did somehow end up keeping the Firestorm abilities, but Stein decided to take the serum to separate their powers, because the only reason Stein was even alive was because of his connection with Jax, and them combining allowed for him to live, but it wasn't a permanent solution. There was nothing that Gideon could do, and their connection was also actually killing Jax, so they had to be separated so that Jax could live. And excuse me, that was a very emotional moment. I'm not gonna lie, I totally teared up, because I was just like, man, and I think it was just like weeks of building up where I was just like, man, I hope so much. Every episode I'm just like, I hope it just ends where he gets to be with his family, because that's all I kept thinking was, I hope he doesn't have to die, because, I know he's leaving the show. I hope he just, leaves and gets to be with his family, and it's, a nice, happy way to do it. And that was not what they did. They did the sad route, and it was super freaking depressing, and everybody has to deal with that trauma of, losing Stein. And then Jax going to the house was just like, man, that was tough for me to watch, but definitely an emotional moment. And, of course, they go into the final battle, and it was definitely a cool final sequence. It was just pretty nuts. It was just so crazy coming off of that moment where, the legends come in and Ray ends up saving Kara because he shrinks down and grabs the scalpel. And, we get some cool stuff, before all the sad stuff, where we get to see him do that, and they come in. We also see him actually enlarge his hand for the first time, so that was really cool. That was like, alright, that's the first time we've seen him do that, so maybe we'll get to him growing in the future. So I was like, alright, that's actually pretty awesome. Of course, the rest of the heroes ultimately end up being saved. On Earth X, we have our heroes over there fighting to get back to Earth 1. They finish off Red Tornado, which I totally forgot to mention in my last review, but it was super awesome that they brought Red Tornado back. So that was really cool. We got to see the Ray, and I'm just going to call him Ray. We got to see Ray and Barry take down Red Tornado by combining their powers, and it made this crazy cup arc of lightning, which visually just looked really cool. So they're able to take out Red Tornado. Ultimately, they end up getting out of there. Of course, they have to get Stein back to the ship, but they make it back, and then that's when everybody starts to team up. Everybody's been rescued. Everybody's come together, and then we have that sad moment of reflection where they do lose a member. So definitely sad, and things have just clearly just been leading up to this moment for Legend of Tomorrow. It was definitely a great way to do it. I still just wish it was one of those things where I was just like, man, I hope that this can just be a simple, happy ending where it'll be sad no matter what, because he's gone. But I was like, I just really hope it's not done in that permanent sort of way. But sadly, that's how they ended up doing it. But it was still very well done, definitely well done. And then, of course, everybody teams up and they go into the final battle where they have the good Wave Rider versus the Nazi, the Nazi Wave Rider. We have everybody teaming up to fight basically just, the Nazis on the ground. And that was really cool. We got to see people flying around. We got to see Killer Frost doing her Iceman Bobby Drake thing where she makes the ice slides and stuff. She, Amaya, and Zari end up going on the Nazi Wave Rider and taking some people down, so that was pretty cool. And it was just awesome. I thought the combat was pretty cool. Once again, crazy giant, it was basically just a landscape of just explosions and people flipping and kicking and combat. And I thought it was pretty cool. We got to see Renee do some good stuff. I thought his combat was actually really good, because it was him doing a lot of hand-to-hand stuff. So I really like Renee's combat. I felt like I noticed that the most, where it was a lot of close-up stuff of him, and I was like, that was actually kind of cool. Everyone else had some good stuff too, but for his, I really noticed it was okay, this feels like I'm legitimately watching an arrow fight, because they always do really close-up stuff. So I thought that was cool. Curtis got some good shots in there as well, but everybody got some good action. Oliver was fighting his doppelganger on top of that truck the entire fight. I thought it was kind of funny because they kind of pan over them while the Wave Riders are flying, and Kara's fighting her doppelganger, and it's just them going, trading blows on the truck. Where there's like ships and stuff, people flying and explosions, and it's just like they're just fighting on the truck. It just seemed funny how simple it was, but they go through, everything's all said and done, and then it gets to the end because of course, evil Supergirl, she she never got the heart that she needed, so her overexposure to radiation was about to lead to her going nuclear. And so Kara has to take her up into the sky, and she takes her up into space, and she blows up, and she's dead. And it's like, okay, well, there goes evil Kara. She's done for. And evil Oliver freaks out because then they reference this. I want to say that was in part 2. I'm pretty sure, where it was like, don't let it basically don't let him choose you over basically the Nazi regime or whatever. And he freaked out because his wife blew up in space, and he flipped out. And I love the way they did it, because at first I thought Oliver wasn't going to kill him. That's what I thought was happening, because I was like, oh, he could just shoot him in the back and he's done for. Because he pulls out the arrow, and he's just looking up at this guy like evil Oliver is just screaming. And then I'm like, alright, so he's not going to kill him, like, because that's kind of not his thing. I don't know, they go back and forth with that on Arrow. But I was like, oh, I guess he's not going to kill him. And so then he's like, I'm going to kill you. And he turns around. I was just like, boom, got you. All right, I'm done here. And I was like, oh, he was waiting because he was just aiming. He's like, once he does this 180, his heart will be right here. And I'm just going to let this bad boy go. Because he was just like, and well, I'm just going to play the waiting game. And he's just like, I'm going to kill you. And I was just like, got him. And I was like, oh, dang, he was just waiting to kill this dude. Like, he was just prepared. Like, I'm going to let him have his little emotional moment here. He's going to be upset and be a little perturbed. Once he turns around, though, I'll just, let my 2 fingers go. And he's gone. It's poof, he's dead. And I was like, huh. He was just waiting for him to turn around so you could just end that. And it was just done. For some reason, it seemed so visceral. Because, like I said, I didn't know why he was just waiting. But it was because he was waiting for that 180. Because he knew his heart would be right in that spot. And it was just like, and dead. And I was just like, okay. He took care of him. He took care of business. So, evil Kara exploded. Evil Oliver got, his heart hit. Barry decided to let Eobard Thawne take off, which I thought was very interesting. I don't know if I particularly agree with the way they handled that. I think I would have preferred if he beat him. But at the same time, it's like, how do you possibly write that without him dying? Like, Barry could not, or would not at least, kill him. And like, even when he did that, I was like, why is Barry doing that? He's not, what is he going to do? Like, it's Barry. He's not going to kill anybody. And it kind of made me laugh. I was like, why is his hand moving? Like, he's not about to kill this dude. So he lets him go, and Eobard actually does take off. And I love the line that they throw in there. It could be totally random, but he's like, I wonder what face I'm going to have next time we meet. And then he takes off, and I was like, is that foreshadowing, or is that just like a random thing because, he can change faces? I was like, I don't know. I feel like that actually might have some relevance in the future. So I don't know if that'll be this season or not. But Eobard Thawne is officially out there. And also, I didn't mention this either in my last review, but they did some stuff with him where I ended up being super confused because I thought I understood. I was like, okay, so this is, Reverse Flash from Earth 1. I was like, oh, that's a bit of a shock, but, he's always alive. And then I realized some of the stuff he was saying really confused me because it was like, alright, so he did everything that happened in the first season. Like, he talked about, like, I was here for 10, 15 years or whatever, hated every minute of it. I did this and I pretended to be this person. They had the scene where he was in the wheelchair when he was talking with Kara, and then he got up and it was just like him kind of going, doing like the little references and stuff. And I was just like, where is he from in the first season? Like, what part of that is he from? Because obviously he's not from the part where he's dead, because he was dead. So I'm pretty sure that is like the definitive end to Eobard Thawne, but every second, millisecond, nanosecond before that, there's another version. That's how he exists. But it was just so weird because I was like, this version of Eobard Thawne isn't like the other versions we've seen. I'm not sure about the Legends of Tomorrow version. I know, which they referenced in this episode when he knocks Ray down. He's like, isn't he supposed to be dead? I don't remember where in the timeline that version of Eobard Thawne was from either. I'd have to watch last season to remember that, because I know they explained it. I just don't remember where he's from now, because that was last year, and I was like, they perfectly explained it too, like where he is from the timeline. I just can't remember right now. But this version, I was like, he did the 15 years. I think pretty much every other version. Actually, yeah, I think that version of Eobard Thawne was before he even went into Flash. I think that's what it was. So the version of Eobard Thawne from Legends of Tomorrow Season 2 was before he even went to um, play Harrison Wells in the very first season of The Flash. It was before I think he even killed. Well, no, it couldn't be before he killed Barry's mom. It was before the first season. That's the point. So I think that was the earliest version, and this, at this point at least, has to be the latest version of Eobard Thawne because, like I said, he went through all that stuff where he's like, oh, I did the 15 years and I was this person. And, he's like, I decided to put the face back on for you and all that stuff. And I was like, that's, it didn't dawn on me at first how confusing that was because it's not like he lived. Like, he died and was, like, erased from existence. And it's like, so this is a version of him. He's like the living embodiment of alternate timelines. That's the best way to put it. Like, every possible version of him pretty much exists because obviously he went through that whole first season and then got wiped away from existence. Yet this is a version of him that did all of that stuff from the first season except for being wiped away from existence because he's, like I said, he knew the 15 years and he did the face thing and being in the wheelchair. He knew about the secret room and all this other stuff, and it's just like super confusing. But that's Eobard Thawne. He is, whenever he shows up, it just makes sense. It's an alternate version of him. It's like this, we saw that version of him that died. This is somehow a version of him that left the timeline a nanosecond before or millisecond, whatever, 2 years before, who knows, or clearly not 2 years, but it's a version of him that left just before he got erased, so he knew all of what happened in season 1 except for him dying. Very confusing, but that is Eobard Thawne in a nutshell. He is the living embodiment of alternate dimensions. Like, he is himself, like every different version of Earth. Like, he is his own, different paths and stuff. So it's super weird, but excited to see him come back in the future. We'll see how that plays out. We did not see the girl from the first episode at the wedding. Her name is officially Dawn, for anyone who wants to look her up. That is all I will give for her character, but I'm very curious how that's going to play into the timeline. That's all I will say for that. And just how she's going to affect what's going on with, like, the Thinker, and if he's calculated for her, and I don't really know if she's a speedster, or what the deal is there 100%. I don't know, I was almost getting, like, a couple of Young Justice vibes a little bit from, like, some of the stuff they were doing, like, with the wedding and being able to be in the moment and stuff. It was kind of funny. I was like, it makes me think of some other elements I've seen from some speedsters, but really enjoyed the crossover. Super sad ending, with Stein. Of course, I was hoping the whole season that he'd just get to be happy, and who knows, we might see Jax actually leave, and this is kind of what they do with Legends of Tomorrow. Some characters go, some characters come in, because apparently Snart was the one who stayed. Blew my mind. I thought for sure that Ray was going to stay and Snart was going to go back, but they kind of leave that open, which I'm kind of excited for, because I mentioned in my last part review, what's Ray's story? Like, what's his deal? How did he even get to Earth X from Earth 1? It wasn't like he was from a different Earth. He was from Earth 1, and then he was like, alright, I'm going back to Earth X, and Snart was like, hey, I'm going to actually stay here for a little bit, and, like, I'll come back to you at some point, but I'm going to stay around for a bit. And I was like, I did not see that one coming. So I don't know if he's joining the Legends, but I would assume that he is, at least for a little bit. We'll see how it plays out, but that really caught me off guard. I was like, oh, he's actually, like, he's actually staying. And I don't know if it's going to be with the Legends because, man, I literally read his name and forgot again, but the actor's name was under special guest appearance. So even though he's staying on Earth 1, I don't think he'll be in Legends of Tomorrow. He might show up here and there, either in Flash or possibly in Legends as well. But it did say that it was a special guest appearance, which typically just means it's just this one episode, surprise who this person is, and then, they're gone. But technically, like, everyone was a special guest because it was all the characters in all the episodes. So I don't know exactly what that means, but I mentioned before, I would love to see him rejoin the Legends, where it's Snart, but it's a different version of him, where he's, like, a really good guy, and it's like, you can't just go around burning people up, due process. And he talks about Earth X version of Mick, where he was this hero who saved a bunch of cops from a burning building, and that's how he died. It's just like, okay, this is interesting. So I do hope he joins the Legends. I was very surprised that Ray didn't actually stay with the team. I thought for sure that was, like, the new thing, is that he was going to join especially considering we find out he's from Earth 1. I thought for sure it was just like a given. Alright, this dude's from Earth 1. He finally made his way back to his home dimension. And then he joins up with the Legends of Tomorrow. We get his backstory throughout the rest of the season. And that was not the case. He went back, and Snart was the one that ended up staying. So I was surprised. Totally happy. But definitely not what I thought was going to happen. Like, total reversal on the theory that I had planned out in my head. But definitely loved this final episode. Like I said, the combat was good. They ultimately defeat the villains. Evil Kara blows up. Oliver just does his thing with Evil Oliver. And then, end of the episode, we actually do get to see Diggle make his quick appearance, where he comes in and he marries both Iris and Barry, as well as Oliver and Felicity, because Felicity decides that she does want to get married. So that was a nice little surprise moment. They make a cool reference to like the fake wedding that they had like 2 seasons ago. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So that was pretty awesome. They ultimately get married, and we'll see that continue on in both, obviously, Flash and Arrow. So looking forward to that, how that changes up certain dynamics. Things are really crazy if you don't watch Arrow right now, so very curious how that's about to play out. It's technically a minor thing, but stuff's just weird with what they're doing right now with Arrow. Like, it's all eyes on Oliver, so him, like, getting married, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But definitely enjoyed this final part, aside from the death. Very sad. But aside from that, it was definitely cool. Also, super random. Zari, who's, for people who may not watch The Legends of Tomorrow, Zari is the woman who's with Amaya, which probably didn't help either. The woman who are with Killer Frost, Amaya is the woman who is Vixen, who had the totem, and then Zari is the woman who had the red totem. She has her official costume. I thought that was cool. It was the first time we got to see it, so that was kind of awesome, and we got to see everybody in the costumes and everything, so that was nice too. But definitely a good episode. Everyone takes off. The Legends leave on their ship. Alex and Kara, they hit the button, jump through the portal, and we kind of just ended out with a little ceremony for our like 2 big hero couples, and they both get married and everything's good. So looking forward to our mid-season finales coming up next week. That should be pretty exciting. Can't wait to see just some of the absolute madness that goes down pretty much all of next week. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about the finale to this 4-part crossover. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. And of course, whether you're big on Legends of Tomorrow or not, I would love to know what you guys thought about Stein's passing. Really sad to me. Like, no joke, if you just randomly find my reviews, all I've been saying this whole season is, man, I really want him to just leave with his family. Do the happy ending thing for once. I would like that to be the way a character leaves, because we all know every time a character is leaving, they die. That's pretty much how it goes. Oddly enough, Supergirl didn't do that. They did have a character leave recently, and it was just like, all right, actually Alex's former fiance. That whole deal. It was like she just left. She did not die. But this had like the whole family element, and it was just like whenever it's a family, it gets real sad, and I was like, I hope Stein just leaves. But it's definitely going to have an effect on the characters, so I am looking forward to how the characters evolve going through the rest of the season after having dealt with that big loss, because it was just leading up to this moment, and it was very well done. So definitely looking forward to how that's going to play out. But we'd love to know how you guys felt about the passing of a character. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about the crossover as a whole. Favorite parts of the crossover, least favorite parts of the crossover. Characters you wish did a little bit more. I still do kind of wish Wally showed up at the end. I just kind of wish they had that, just a little bit, especially at least at the very end for sure, because it was like everything was all said and done, and they didn't. It was kind of like just contact Wally and be like, hey, bring Joe and Cecile back so that maybe they could be at the little ceremony or something. But it was just like, oh, he was, they took off in the very first part, and then that was pretty much it. Or I guess it was. Yeah, it was in the second part, I guess. It was like, all right, you need to get them out of there so they're safe. And then they were gone ever since, and they never came back. So I would have loved to have seen more of Wally. I would like to have seen more of Team Arrow. I feel like we saw the least of them, but I think it was kind of tied with the other half of the Legends team as well, because they don't show up at all until the final part. So more from them, and then a little bit more from Team Arrow. But obviously in the Legends episode, the Legends definitely got some great focus, especially with Stein passing. We got to see how everyone was affected by that. So Team Arrow, I still feel like got the least kind of shine as far as the actual other heroes from Team Arrow. We did get to see Diggle at the very end, so that was nice. because I was like, oh man, Diggle, with what's going on with him, we don't get to see him. I figured Thea wouldn't be in this. For people that don't watch Arrow, she like some stuff in case you decide to watch it. I don't know. But yeah, I was like, oh, it sucks that we don't get to see Thea, but I figured she wouldn't be there. But I really enjoyed this one. I like this a lot more than the Dominators thing, although the Arrow episode was my favorite for the Dominators because that was the 100th episode. They did a great job for that for Arrow, but it wasn't really the best crossover episode. So that was the thing. I feel like this year they perfected the crossover. Last year was like Supergirl wasn't even really a part of the crossover. They called it like the Fortnite thing, and it was like the last 30 seconds. And then Flash was big on the crossover, and Legends of Tomorrow was big on the crossover. Arrow was basically the characters were in like this alternate reality for quite a while, and it was like great Arrow episode, phenomenal Arrow episode. It was the 100th one. They did a perfect job with that one. But as far as the crossover, it was like, not big on the crossover. This every single episode was like, this feels like a crossover for every single show, and I think this is how they should do it from now on. Like, just have, the threads are in there for sure, where you have the important storylines, but everything was just everybody, like throughout the entire thing, except for like the legend showing up not until the fourth part. It was just everybody's doing something somewhere at some point, and I think that was great. That's how the crossovers definitely should be from now on. So I hope that's how they decide to do whatever the crazy crossover is going to end up being next year. I hope it's kind of like this, because I think they did a great balance bringing everyone in, at least for like a small segment, including characters who died years ago on the show. Like Tommy coming back for part 2 was awesome. So little tiny stuff like that, I think is definitely great. I love the way they handled it, and getting to see everybody. We didn't get to see Jean, so that would have been awesome. Jean is Martian Manhunter and Supergirl, so I would love to have seen him more, because he showed, technically he was there for the Supergirl portion and that was it, but we don't get to see like a doppelganger version of him. I would have loved to have seen that. But yeah, I love this crossover. Like I said, want to know what you guys thought about Stein's passing. If you care, don't care, just want to know how you guys are feeling about that. And of course, want to know how you guys felt about the crossover as a whole, how you compared this one to the Dominator crossover, which one was better, which one was worse, which parts were better or worse. And just want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.